everybody, welcome to Teen Book Babble.
I'm Kelsey.
I'm Ash.
I'm Jenna.
And I'm Randy, and we're here to talk about our most recent reads. And up first is Kelsey.
Hi, everybody. So my book for this time is The Bells by Danielle Clayton. It is a fantasy novel, and it is book one in a duology. The second book is called Everlasting Rose, and it is also available here at the library. This book, the main premise, it takes place in the world of Orleans. And some of the sort of cosmology for this world is that the goddess of beauty fell in love with the god of the sky. But when they had their children, who were the human race, the goddess of beauty was spending so much time with them that the sky god got jealous. So he cursed all humanity that in their natural state, they're born with gray, wrinkled skin, bloodshot red eyes, and straw-like hair. Everybody, that is, except for the bells, who are born in full color and possess this magical ability to change the physical appearance of others. And it really explores sort of the concept of a society that revolves around beauty being this very transient yet important thing. One of the things that I think is really, really interesting about it is by having everyone be born gray and the fashion trends change, it's not like it's calling out any one thing like, oh, people shouldn't want to be this, people shouldn't want to be this. It makes it more ephemeral for the concept of beauty as a whole. And the writing itself also, while it could be addressing this topic of beauty and body image and stuff, could get very preachy, but the author does a really, really good job making her setting very, very magical and fantastical and beautiful. The way that I would sort of describe it is the writing itself is really gorgeous and dark, and you get the sense that the world is like, it's like a rose that is just starting to go bad, where the scent is just starting to change and the petals are just a little bit too loose. It's just a really, really interesting concept to think of the society where everyone absolutely hates their very natural state of being. And it's just really, really interesting to explore that. It's very exciting, and the world is just, it's inspired by both like French and New Orleans culture, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I would definitely recommend it. It is available both in print at the library as well as ebook and audio ebook on Access 360, ebook on Cloud Library and Overdrive, as well as e-audio on Overdrive.
Hi, today I am going to talk about The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. It is one of my favorite books, and it is the first book of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. It can be found in print at the library or digitally using Overdrive or Cloud Library. And it's about 12-year-old Percy Jackson. He learns he's a demigod, the son of a mortal woman and Poseidon, god of the sea. His mother sends him to a summer camp for demigods, where he and his new friends set out on a quest to prevent a war. And then my thoughts on the book, even though it's really been a while since I read it, it's after all these years, it's still a favorite of mine due to its story, characters, world building, and then my favorite part of it, its sense of humor. Percy's observations about the world around him are nothing short of hilarious. There's no lack of action that will keep you turning the page after page till you realize that you've been up all night and there's nothing left. I'm sure I've done that quite a few times with this book. It's just that good. If you're a fan of action, adventure, with humor, The Lightning Thief is the right book for you. I recommend it for people who love Harry Potter or Gregor the Overlander by Suzanne Collins.
Hey, I read Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is the first book in the Arc of a Scythe series that he wrote. This one came out in 2016, so it's a little older. I feel like people have probably already been reading this, but this was my first time. It's been on my list for a while, and I'm so glad I got the chance. It's set in the distant future in a world that is now free of all hardships because technology has become so advanced. The cloud that we have today is replaced with something called the Thunderhead, which is where all knowledge is stored and accessible to humans. But It's basically like Big Brother on steroids. Crime no longer exists because the Thunderhead sees everything. It's all knowing, all seeing. No one commits any crimes anymore because the Thunderhead will immediately convict you. And it's usually not fun. It's usually death and not jail. People no longer have an expiration date. No one dies, and they can turn a corner at any time, which basically means you can reset your body's age to perfect health and youth. It becomes pretty customary for people to reset themselves once they turn 60 or 70, and they reset themselves to around 24 years old. It's seen as more tacky to reset yourself younger than that. It's rare that someone resets themselves as a teenager, but you can do it. But of course, the Thunderhead knows your true age. And the Scythes also know your true age. So that's the one issue. Since natural death is no longer a factor, unnatural death must occur to control the population. So chosen based on compassion, merit, and their actual lack of desire to do the job, Scythes are chosen to devote their entire lives to taking others' lives. Selected based on statistics from the mortal world, Scythes must choose people to glean in an unbiased manner or face the wrath of the Thunderhead. So Scythes themselves are subject to death if they do not choose their victims unbiasedly. So Citra and Rowan, we meet two teenagers in the story who want nothing to do with such a horrific occupation. So naturally, they are the perfect apprentices, and they are chosen to be apprentices to a Scythe, and they're forced to leave their friends and families behind, and they now have to compete for a job that neither of them really wants, or so they thought. I really like this book. It's a little bit slow at times, but I'm already sort of into the second one, which is a lot faster. And Neil Shusterman is definitely one of my favorite YA authors. He wrote the Unwind Chronicles. If you've read those, if you haven't, you need to. Unwind is one of the most disturbing YA books I've ever read, but it's still so good and so powerful. He's got an eloquent way of storytelling that does not fall short in Unwind, and it doesn't fall short here either. So after meeting Rowan and Citra, you kind of predict the teens will become apprentices and that one of them is eventually going to win Scythehood. But eventually you get into some even deeper stuff in this book. There are mass gleanings going on, which are the murders committed by Scythes. And you get a sense that there's a rogue group of Scythes running around killing people. And it just takes off from there. So I would definitely say you can predict some occurrences here, but the plot twists are just as awesome once you get closer to the end. You can find it in print, and it's also available in ebook on Access 360 and Overdrive, and available on audiobook on Hoopla.
I am going to be talking about The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is also a fantasy novel. It's a first in a series, and it was published in 2018. It's part of her Folk of the Air trilogy, which includes The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and Queen of Nothing. So this is the first book, and in the first book you meet Jude, who's 7 years old, and her parents are murdered. And then she and her siblings are abducted and taken to fairyland. And she's living with the fairy, he's a redcap, who killed her parents. So she's not had it easy living with Maddox, the redcap general who murdered her parents. She's a mortal living among powerful beings, and she's struggling to survive the cruelty of all the Fae who despise humans. She's determined to find her place and best those who think she's inferior, particularly Prince Carden, who is the youngest son of the High King. She uses her cunning and skills with the blade to become a spy, and in the process discovers a wicked political plot to overthrow the current monarch. So Jude will have to use everything in her arsenal to save her family and Fairy itself. I really like this book in part because Holly Black is one of my favorite authors. She's written quite a few books about the Fae, including one of my personal favorites, Tithe. So I was happy to see that she returned to a world that was set in, a book that was set in the same world as many of her earlier novels. I really enjoy her characters a lot. In this novel, particularly Jude and Carden. Jude is kind of an interesting character. You know, her parents are murdered, and then she's forced to live with their killer and her family in a completely unfamiliar and fantastical world. She, you know, Maddox, who is obviously kind of this kind of wicked being, has become her stepfather. And he's not always unkind, but she never forgets that he can't be trusted. You know, no one in this world can really be trusted. She lives with all these creatures that actively plot against her and others who perform acts of unkindness out of ignorance. She's strong and cunning and crafty and determined, and at times herself cruel. The Cruel Prince is told from Jude's perspective, so we really only see Carden, the prince, through her eyes. And at first, he's not really a likable character, but as the story unfolds throughout the 3 books, we learn more about his backstory and his motivations. I really like that both of these characters are not one thing. They make mistakes, and that makes them both more human. You can find this book in print at our library. You can also find it on Access 360 as an ebook and an e-audiobook, Cloud Library as an ebook, and Overdrive as an ebook and an e-audiobook. I also want to include one of our teen volunteer recommendations. This recommendation is also for a fantasy novel. It comes from Brianna, and she's recommending Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton. This book was published in 2016. I actually have it here. Rebel of the Sands is part of a series. It is a trilogy, and it includes Rebel of the Sands, Traitor to the Throne, and Hero at the Fall. So this book is about Amani, who lives in the desert nation of Miraji. It's a harsh, unforgiving place with mythical beasts, powerful jinn, and terrible but wondrous magic. She desperately wants to get out of Dustwalk, a dead-end town where her only options are marriage or death. Amani intends to use her sharp shooting skills to escape, but then she meets Jin, a mysterious rebel fugitive, and her life is never the same. So Brianna really liked this book because it is full of adventure and creative characters. She thinks it's great because it represents the power of a young girl and standing up for what you believe in. The entire trilogy is only available at our library in print, but you could place a hold and get it for pickup in the drive-thru today. So if you decide you would like to be part of our teen volunteering project, you can get some volunteer hours for recommending books. Submit a book review to earn service hours. These book recommendations will be posted on our blog, website, and included in social media posts. You can do that at fountaindale.org/teen-volunteer, and you can start recommending your favorite books today. That's all we have for today. So if you want more recommendations, I encourage you to visit our website at fountaindale.org/teen-reads to view book lists curated just for you.